When I was a child, all of this was pasture. And the people that lived here owned a burro. And she had a baby. And that burro lost her baby. And it just brayed and brayed and brayed, crying for her baby that she lost. The reason I'm talking about that is because during this period in the late 40s and early 50s, all the animals, all the farm animals seemed to be dying for no reason. The people, the dairy farmers, couldn't understand why all the animals were dying. All the dogs and cats were dying. All the baby calves being born were not surviving. My father worked for the creameries here in Walla Walla. So we had lots of milk products in our home. And one day a farmer gave my father a calf for us to raise. And Dad came home and said, "Don't get too attached to this calf, because for some reason all of them were dying this year." And we subsequently lost our calf also. But it always stuck in my memory. Why were all the animals dying or being born deformed? We could never understand why the animals were being born with crooked hooves. And I relate that to now how my daughter Jennifer was born, where she would have the crooked hoof syndrome. This home wasn't here in the late 40s and early 50s. But the reason I'm pointing this home out, this was what we called our jungle. It was overgrown creek area. But the reason it's important to me is this is the home of the pathology technician, Dr. Davis, who did pathology autopsies on a lot of the bodies that were stolen from Hanford. And as a matter of fact, they did the autopsy on my daughter Jennifer.
And what do you mean now by the bodies that were stolen from Hanford? Could you explain that again?
Okay. Hanford had body snatchers. They had people that would go into the mortuaries over there in the Tri-Cities, steal the bodies without the family members knowing it. They would bring them to Walla Walla, do autopsies on them, take bone samples, tissue samples, body parts for the nuclear mausoleum, as I call it. It's transuranium registry. And but they would do that in Walla Walla and then take the bodies back to
the morgues where they got
to
them
the
from.
morgues where they got them, to the mortuaries that they had stolen them from originally, from Pasco, Kennewick, Richland, wherever.
So someone dies and it's suspected that there was a connection to Hanford, and so they would go over and take those bodies unknowing to the families.
Correct. When people worked for Hanford, they signed away their rights. They didn't necessarily know that they were signing away their rights, but
So these were Hanford workers then?
these were
Okay.
quite often, most often, Hanford workers or people related to having lived in the area always. And they would steal these bodies and do their autopsies and then steal them back in the middle of the night without anyone ever knowing that this was done to their family member, without their consent or knowledge. But I find that this house here, where I played in my jungle area is now the home of the pathologist that did autopsy my daughter, as well as all the Hanford workers that they could get their hands on, basically. This area that is here was farmland. There weren't homes. It was open fields where we would sit in a cabbage patch, literally, and eat cabbage from the fields or carrots from the fields. This was my playground. This was owned by the Scarpelli family. The Scarpellis, I just buried my dear friend Richie Scarpelli yesterday. He died from a brain tumor. His sister had breast cancer and it metastasized to her brain. Richie was 11 days older than I am, and I'm 58 today. Or yesterday, I was 58. This is very, very hard and dear for me because on this little street, which is only 4 or 5 blocks long, I know personally of 5 brain tumors. And 2 of them were my very, very dear childhood friends, long lifetime friends that I no longer have. This corner is significant because there were 4 people that died from brain tumors on this corner. My dear, dear friend died from a brain tumor that lived in this home right over here. It was a different home now, but that's where his home was. But I know of I believe it's 4 brain tumors just in this little pod right here. My dear friend, his name was Jim Bridges, and his daughter, or his granddaughter, was Jennifer Bridges, that we visited her grave yesterday at the cemetery. She was the little baby that was born without emotions. And they never understood why Jennifer had the very rare disease that she had. I really wish I knew the name of it, but I don't. But Jennifer could show she couldn't cry, she couldn't smile, she couldn't do anything but lay in her bed or lay in her wheelchair or whatever she was in. The only emotion she ever had was seizures, and seizures is what ended her little life. And I believe she was 2.5 or 3 at that age.
Were there physical ailments as well?
Not to my knowledge.
That she was in a wheelchair?
She, only because she couldn't walk, she couldn't sit up, she couldn't do anything except lay. And so she was just like a newborn, but she was the size that my granddaughter is now. And she's 3. She was a beautiful little girl, beautiful. The baby's father was also a Walla Walla boy. So we know genetically that this baby was very damaged because of radiation. I believe very strongly because of the radiation. Jim Lariger, author of um, Under the Cloud came to Walla Walla and interviewed me one time. And he told me that he had just come home from Chernobyl, and he had witnessed children like Jennifer over there that had no emotion, could do nothing but lay there. That's so very sad. So very sad. This is my home where I grew up. Out of my family of 5, 3 of us have had cancer. My mother and I were diagnosed the same day by the same doctor as both having cancer. She had liver cancer, very inoperable. Mine was left kidney cancer. The doctor just couldn't believe that a mother-daughter could have cancer the same time. It just doesn't happen unless we were environmentally exposed together. My brother has serious heart disease. He has had 2 heart attacks, but he has also had male reproductive problems, testiculaриtis, where he has had 1 testicle removed, and they thought for a while that they were going to have to amputate the 2nd testicle. My father had cancer in his left eye socket. My father worked for the creameries in Walla Walla. He worked for several creameries at different times. He was one of the machinists for the creamery, where he would work on the machinery, and he was working on what they called a pure back machine, which is the paper cartons, the cardboard cartons that folded and waxed and filled with milk. And I used to love to go watch the pure pack machine run. And he was working on that one day, and a piece of steel went into his left eye, and it was razor sharp, and so they had to surgically remove his eye. And that was in and around the year of 1950, 51, 49. I'm not exactly sure. By the end of 1968, my father had cancer in his left eye socket. My father was manic depressant. We didn't know what manic depressant was in 1968. He had fluctuating mood swings. My father told me in January 1969 that he would never allow another surgeon to ever put a knife to his left eye again. Because of the cancer that he had in his eye, I don't know whether it was the pain that he was having or the pain that he was going to have. But my dad chose his own way to end his own life. He committed suicide by jumping off the steel bridge in Portland, Oregon, into the Willamette River. His death certificate reads drowning. It doesn't read cancer. It doesn't read suicide. But that's part of the causation from Hanford. He had both. I miss him dearly.